So moved.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Pull marks out. No.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Lucetti,
Aye.
Mr. Kozel,
Aye.
Mr. Kirking,
Aye.
Mr. Costick,
Aye.
Mr. Lulo,
Aye.
Mrs. Molinari.
Aye.
Under other business, Amy Knight, Secretary, Lincoln Way West High School, has completed her 90-day probationary period. Kristen Feltz, Secretary, District Office, has successfully completed her 90-day probationary period. And Tracy McMahon, Payroll Clerk, District Office, has successfully completed her 90-day probationary period. I recommend that the board approve these full-time status of these employees as presented.
Thank you. Motion to approve these employees for full-time status.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Kozel,
Aye.
Mr. Kirking,
Aye.
Mr. Costick,
Aye.
Mr. Lucetti,
Aye.
Mr. Lulo,
Aye.
Mrs. Molinari.
Aye. Thank you, Mr. Schiffbauer. Bid recommendation for bus leases.
Wanted to bring to your attention and seek approval. When we return from winter break, we'll be entering the final 6 months of a 5-year bus lease. So by June 30th, 2017, we will need to replace 48 international buses. Rich Pagliaro and Mike Leone will begin to assemble the bid specs for replacement of these buses. There'll be many bidders. We anticipate many bidders for this project. Mike, go ahead and add anything you might have at this time.
Well, this is actually the first of 4 years in a row when we'll start to turn over the fleet. This batch goes on June 30th, and then we have the next 3 years, we'll have another batch every year. So in the summer of 17, 18, 19, and 20, so that by July 1 of 2020, we will have rotated every bus out and have replacements in.
And so we're asking for approval to begin the process. Certainly, as we go through the process, we'll keep the board appraised of where we are, and then I'm anticipating, Rich, probably March for approval.
At the very latest, yes.
Okay. So we'll begin the process of assembling the bid specs, go to the bid process and get the best price we can based upon safety, reliability, service. So I'd look for a motion to begin the process to develop bids for bus leasing.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion? Questions?
So how's the cold weather starting of the new bus of our existing fleet?
It was very good today. Knock on wood.
We'll see Monday morning.
Well, we'll see tomorrow morning. I'll worry about tomorrow. Monday's far away.
So what are we approving? Just to start
To start the
process.
process.
Of looking at
So
leases.
it's a formal start of the process. It's something Rich had recommended, so the board's aware that we're beginning the process to assemble the bid. Any approval would have to come back to the board. But this is also something we can bring to the Building and Finance Committee as the bid spec is put together before we go to bid. Probably in January. So we could bring this to the Building and Finance in January for discussion.
Okay, motion and second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Approval of the Treasurer's Report for November 2016.
Good evening. Before you should have the treasurer's report along with financial statements and cash flows for the month ended November 30th, 2016. Once again, this month I also provided a memo of just a variance analysis for year over year. I don't know if you want me to go into any of that or if anyone has any
discussion or
questions.
questions of the memo?
I have a question.
Yes.
Sure.
On the 2 residential lots, can you take us through that whole transaction, what's occurring here?
Sure. So, as a result of our audit from fiscal year 2016, It was determined that the lots were bought out of student activities, which was, I think it was back in 2005. It took a lot of investigation to figure out when they were purchased, but that was causing a large portion of the negative balance that was in buildings and trades. So that, and I think it was about $245,000 was the cost of the two lots. The lots were being held as an asset on our student activities account fund. And you really can't have land in student activities. So our new auditors recommended that that be moved to our general ledger, to our educational fund, and be held there for investment. So as part of what we did to clear out the negative balance in buildings and trades, the ed fund had paid already $130,000 to help support that negative balance. So what we did was basically the ed fund paid the additional $115,000, so we paid the full amount of the cost of the land. And if you look at our financial statements, the cost of the land is now shown as an asset held for investment, asset held for sale as an investment in the ed fund. So that's why our beginning balances that we've been reporting so far this year decreased, the cash decreased by $115,000.
Kelly, when was the 130 paid?
The 130 was paid right at year end.
So in last year's fiscal?
Yeah, it was paid in, I think, June 30th, we transferred the money.
Go ahead.
So the 115,566, when was that paid?
We have not transferred that money yet. We're going to do it in December. So basically what it's going to be is a reconciling item on our cash recs up until December, when we show that that $115,000 was actually moved to student activities.
Just for understanding, why wasn't that all taken care of in one transaction rather than in two pieces?
I think it's a couple of different reasons. I don't think we were fully aware. Again, this is, kind of before I started.
Right.
But I don't think we were fully aware that the land had been purchased out of student activities. We quite literally had to go back to 2005 to determine that that's where it was purchased. And then in just conversations with our auditors, we just felt that it was best. Student activities isn't meant to be a place where you house land. So I think if we would have known that, and I think what we did at the end of the year was in the spirit of what our previous auditors had recommended, and that was to clear out the buildings and trades account. In my opinion, what they should have also mentioned was that the best way to have done that was to move the land back over to the ed fund. Obviously, the buildings and trades account was more negative than just the $245,000, so there was more that needed to be done there. But I think that if we would have known that, we would have had that fund just pay the $245,000.
I have a motion to approve the treasurer's report for November 2016. Motion, please.
So moved.
Second. Any further discussion?
So on the categorical amounts due from the state, has there been any discussion on, so we haven't been paid these 2 quarters and coming up on the December quarter. Has there been any indication if these amounts will be paid?
What I received yesterday from one of our associations was, after December 31st of 2016, the way I understand it, the comptroller can release last year's payment if they so choose. So as of right now, Frizz, nothing's in the pipeline. And so there's the possibility, I guess, hope that we would receive one at some point, but typically by now we've received 2 payments. By the close of this quarter, they'll owe us 1 from last year and then the 2 the two this year. But right now, no further discussion other than the email I received that the comptroller would have the authority to do so if they so choose, but nothing has been placed yet.
Are we factoring this into our TAW analysis to make sure that, let's assume that we're not going to receive the next quarter's payment from the state? And
Steve?
that kind of cash flow analysis?
So our cash flow analysis looks at expenditures first, and that's what we base our TAW needs off of before any revenue even comes in. And then our revenue, the way that Steve does it, is based off of budget. So since we haven't realized that money yet, that money gets pushed out further than we would be taking it in. But like I said, it's the expenditures that are driving that cash flow in our TAW needs.
Do we have any update on the TAWs?
We do. We had a meeting Tuesday with Old Second Bank. They will bring the discussion and our proposal back to their board. Their board will have to approve any additional lending at this time. We were able to provide our current cash flows, show our projections, show where we are year to date, and they understand the urgency of letting us know. At the same time, we've had discussions with other public entities, particularly in Cook County, as the timing of their tax distribution could potentially work for a short-term, when I say short-term, I mean literally 30 days or 45-day borrowing of an additional $1 million if need be at that point. So those discussions are taking place. Old Second assured us we would know in short order what the availability would be and what the limit would be.
Could you
January
clarify short order?
1st.
Thank you.
January 1st. We have to know by the start
Right,
of the new
thank you.
year.
Okay.
Yes.
Do we have what you think we just drew down $7 million? Do you know when you project that we'll go through that $7 million?
$7 million on the cash flows, Chris. It's going to be, we won't make a January insurance payment as we've discussed, as well as a February insurance. So that will give us about $1.6 million additional. So let me go to my cash flow here. I know we're going to be at balance. Yeah, it's going to be March. So right now we've got 7, 15. So the additional $5 million we will have to draw by either the end of February, beginning of March, certainly. Probably prior to the March 5th.
I would think it's going to be towards the end of February if you factor in less revenue coming in from, if you don't factor in the 800 or 900,000 in the state category.
Certainly. If we receive nothing in January, it will be the end of February before we make any salary payments in March.
Are there any backdoor communications with Springfield? I mean, not that, we're kind of in a little bit of a unique situation where we're borrowing while we're waiting.
That's a good point. We're one of a few districts in this situation. I can make more calls to ISB that they seem to have a sense that's where we received the email through correspondence that the comptroller could release. So I can make a call down to see if that's even a possibility of something that could take place. Because certainly the $2 million is adding to our borrowing.
Right.
And
the
paying
price of
interest
it just went up.
Just went up,
Yeah.
correct.
Yeah.
Higher interest because the state hasn't paid us our bills.
Right. I just, with a sense of urgency, I don't know.
We should be like on the priority.
Or-
A little bit.
I know they do that with some social service agencies and
Give
things
them
like that.
Give an idea. No, I can make some calls.
Okay.
Any further discussion?
No, next.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Kozel.
Aye.
Mr. Kirby.
Aye.
Mr. Costick.
Aye.
Mr. Luchetti.
Aye.
Mr. Lulo.
Aye.
Mrs. Molinari.
Aye. Approval of the student activities report for November 2016.
Before you have the November 2016 student activity report, where our balance is $2,383,729.82 with revenues of $377,937.07 and expenditures of $440,880.07. I again prepared a memo just explaining some of our negative balances for the month, along with detailing that $115,000 that we were just discussing. Our negative balances for the month, really all have been cleared with the exception of that performing arts, which will all be taken care of in the next month, because that, as we will talk about later, is part of the timeline for our audit findings and when those will be resolved.
I have a motion to approve the treasurer's report for November 2016. I'm sorry, student activities report for November 2016. Motion, please.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Discussion.
So when you say we're going to go over next month all the transfers that have been made to close out various accounts and what kind of the accounts are going to look like going forward at each campus.
What my plan is to bring a report to the Building and Finance Committee with my recommendation of what I think should be closed. I don't think that I will make any actual adjustments. I'm going to make the $115,000 obviously, but the actual closure of any accounts I don't think that I will do until I have board approval. So once I have that in January, those will be made.
Further discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Kozel.
Aye.
Mr. Kirky.
Aye.
Mr. Costick.
Aye.
Mr. Luchetti.
Aye.
Mr. Lulo.
Aye.
Mrs. Molinari.
Aye. Out-of-state travel.
We have a couple out-of-state travels. In your packets. First is from Ben Clark, the Jazz Ensemble, Lincoln Way East, traveling to Purdue University. This is something they do every year. No miss to school. Also, from the music department, we have Lincoln Way East, Central, and North District Winter Guard, looking to travel to Flint, Michigan, February 11th and 12th for a regional event at Illinois, Michigan, Indiana, and Wisconsin. The same Winter Guard would travel then to Indianapolis, Indiana on February 18th and 19th of 2017. Once again, not missing school, and this would be a larger regional event. World Language Department, Sean Maher is requesting a trip to Madrid in southern Spain for June 11th through June 20th of 2018. If you review the attached itinerary, I believe they're going through Explorica. Yes, Explorica for a little bit longer than a week-long trip. I would ask that you approve the out-of-state travels as presented once the principals collect all the appropriate paperwork.
Motion to approve the out-of-state travel as presented, please.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Discussion.
Do we have any policy? This is a very large, looks like a great trip. I'd like to go.
They need chaperones?
But, so they're looking for payment, and according to what's on here, and I kind of looked online, they're looking for payment by December 20th for a trip that's in the summer of 2018.
Correct.
And so this company, I looked it up, and they have, $1 million bond and a $50 million liability policy, and we've used Explorica before, so I think we're comfortable with this. But do we have any policy on, these companies have to be bonded or something before we have students paying, almost $4,000?
We don't, and a couple years ago, Chris, it was maybe 2 years ago, we discussed this with our attorneys. And because the parents sign off on all the waivers and everything through that company, they're they're insuring that risk and not the district. If that makes sense.
Do we need to give board approval on this?
The last time we looked at this, I believe it was a trip to Europe. Principals, you can help me out a little bit. But I believe it was a trip to Europe, and our attorney recommended that we do continue approval. We transport them from here to the airport and back. Then they get on the plane. But that's something we can explore again. I believe that was 2 years ago that we had
That's 2 years
discussion.
ago, yes. Any further discussion?
They do have a $50 million liability policy.
Hearing none, is there any cost to the district?
No.
Okay. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Approval of the independent contractor agreement for on-site childcare.
We had developed an RFQ. We sent it out to 9 different companies. We received 2 proposals back. Brian Murphy, our Family and Consumer Science Chair, Melissa Rowell, and myself sat down with the 2 companies that submitted bids. One was Aunt Nancy's, the other was Mary Sears. Sat down, had conversations with each. In going through what we felt were the most important points of a contract, personnel, Aunt Nancy's director and staff is in place. Mary Sears would hope to hire existing staff. That could happen, may not. The proposed cost difference was significant between one competitor and the other, Aunt Nancy's being more affordable. Furniture, Aunt Nancy's has it currently in place. The district does not own the furniture. Mary Sears would propose buying the furniture from Aunt Nancy's. Of course, if Aunt Nancy's decided to move their business, that may not be an option. Remittance, which is something that is in the current agreement and was in the RFQ of $60,000. Aunt Nancy's has agreed to that remittance. Mary Sears would need more information before willing to commit at this time. Both educational programs are well established, comparable. We looked at DCFS rule violations in 2015, and most importantly in 2016. And then some other considerations. Mary Sears had asked that if Aunt Nancy's were not to get the bid, that they would sign a no-compete clause, and obviously they wouldn't be willing to do that. So I guess we're at a place, we were asked to go out, see what the landscape looked like, and we did. A number of those businesses, chose not to put together an RFQ or a bid proposal. We received one call who asked if the $60,000 is a firm number, and I had said yes, at this time it is, and they said, well, and we're out. So I guess it's now a board decision. It would be if we decide to continue to use on-site childcare, it would be my recommendation that we would stick with our current operator and move forward for a 3-year agreement. A couple of the changes in the agreement, a couple of highlights, I guess. The term would be July 1, 2017 to 2020. Either party or each party will inform intent to renew or not renew by July 1st of 2019, so we don't run into what we did last time if we decide to continue in this. There's additional verbiage in here that any use of school property, if ever taxes or real estate taxes are levied, it would be the responsibility of the contractor and not the district. That was an addition. Cleaning and janitorial services. Once again, the contractor is responsible for the cleaning and services for each and every of their area. The district will maintain the outside, all heat, air conditioning, light, water. The remittance of $20,000 for each site. In addition, the payments not received by the 7th of the month will be subject to a late fee of $50 per day until paid. Each subsequent year, the agreement will be increased by the December CPI for all consumer price indexes. The insurance of $3 million per occurrence, $5 million aggregate. We discussed this with our attorneys. They have to provide us initial and annual proof of insurance payment 1 year in advance. Termination, once again, there's a 90-day clause on either side. This agreement may only be terminated in a period of less than 90 days if it is mutually agreed upon by both parties. That's some new language. And I think those are the main changes from previous to now.
May I have a motion, please, to approve the independent contractor agreement for on-site childcare?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Discussion.
Scott, just to reiterate, what is our cost of having this company on-site daycare in the district in terms of the square foot utilities?
Utilities,
cetera?
and I didn't bring that with me. The last time Mr. Wilkie did the assessment, it's anywhere from 10, 12, 13,000 a building. So we're running somewhere around 30,000. You know, we're gaining 60. The rooms at West were built for this purpose. At East, we would need to do some construction to repurpose. At Central, we could repurpose those classrooms rather easy.
You're saying if we
If we didn't have daycare, we could repurpose.
we don't have to do anything right now?
No.
Okay. I mean, is it safe to assume, too, when we're talking about this 10,000 a year, we're going to be heating and air conditioning these
The space anyway.
regardless, so it's not like it's necessarily a true cost, it's just the cost per square foot of
Per square
operating the
foot
of operating the building.
Mr. Wilkie, am I right on that number?
Approximately, yes.
Approximately. Okay.
My personal feeling here, okay, if there's no new provider, I think we should table moving forward on going with this contract and making sure that we negotiate the proper deal on a move forward basis. I think, you know, we have to look at what they're, I mean, there's a lot of things, I don't want to negotiate out in public, I think there's a lot of things, just like looking at, you know, what the actual cost is going to be for each category, how much revenue is going to be made, and make sure that we're being properly compensated.
Well, I thought when we went out for bid, we looked at the cost, and that's what we set the parameters at, so we're not losing money. And my understanding is we're not in a position to make money either, but it's more or less a break even, or if there's a slight.
Yeah, there's some gain. It's, you know, it's, I guess, and I understand what Mr. Luchetti's saying. You know, this is a service contract with one of our vendors. You know, we don't know exactly what our maintenance companies, or our lawn maintenance companies make, our landscapers, GCA. You go to bid, you open the competition. If someone had come in and said, you know, we'll offer you $100,000 to provide these services, and they met the other criterias, then that's a company that we would be discussing right now as well. But you know, I understand, but yet at the same time, we did go through a competitive bid process.
We did a request for
qualifications.
Request for qualifications.
Based upon $60,000.
I mean, they are, Aunt Nancy's is a for-profit business, and all I'm saying is that there's some things that you can consider to make sure that, you know, how is that $60,000 the correct amount for the services that we're providing? I mean, you can go back and look at, you know, the amounts that were given to us for what Aunt Nancy's was charging, you know, for infants, toddlers, 2 years, preschools, the undiscounted, what they viewed as their undiscounted amount in 2015. The district did their own looking of the area average, and there's, you know, at $60,000, are you being properly compensated? Is that 6%? You know, let's say if it's $1 million roughly, I know they've lost some children, but I mean, is that roughly what a daycare provider would pay for, you know, utilities, rent, maintenance? So there's room in here to negotiate. If you look at the answer to the questionnaire, one question I didn't want to put on there, but would you be willing to pay an additional fee? It says possibly based upon enrollment only. So there's margin in there, right? If they're only at 80%, they could have additional students. There's the ability to potentially raise the fee that you're making here. So all I'm asking is that we go back and negotiate to make sure that, you know, we just take this RFQ. I think there's room to go back and negotiate and make sure that we're getting the best and the proper deal for the district.
What if they walk?
So what?
They're a for-profit business.
Yeah. Come on.
I mean, we're just, all I'm saying is we're going to ask.
I'm asking you the question, what if they walk? Then you're going to go to the teachers and say daycare isn't available?
Most school districts don't offer.
And if
And
it's,
then how many of our staff had, I don't recall that, you put a survey out to the
They're
staff,
holding you hostage.
94%.
94%.
90 plus, it was definitely. Well,
Joe,
I guess-
they put in here, you know,
I read
they're
it.
possibly going to negotiate.
I read it, I think it's fascinating, because what if you got an extra $10,000 a year on it?
And I guess,
We
Mike,
have to-
if this was as lucrative as we think you're suggesting it might be,
The other 8 would have.
where were
the
these
other
other
bidders?
companies?
Right.
Why didn't they
Why
step forward?
weren't they?
Because they're not already on site, they don't already have the infrastructure in place. I mean, they're going to have to buy everything.
Okay.
I-
So, I mean, they weren't even interested in submitting a proposal after
They
being
could have
reached
submitted
out
that
to.
proposal for $20,000, but they didn't.
There were 11
There's a lot of teachers
companies
unhappy
that
with Nancy,
were
just saying.
contacted. How many actually came and
There's a lot.
walked through out of that 11? 4 or 5?
4 or 5, yes.
There's not a high interest, and I think the big underlying question is a service that we have for the teachers in place. And if that's something that this board chooses to not continue, then that's a
That's not-
different question.
That's not what I'm
That's not what he's
saying.
saying.
All I'm saying is you go back and negotiate. I mean, if
Okay,
you move forward with this contract, what happens if Aunt Nancy's raises the rates 15%?
Then they don't get the business. And
But then they're not,
You're trying to control the capital market, I don't understand what you're trying to do.
I'm not trying to control the capital market, I'm trying to take,
You're trying to
So we don't
capitalize on the
get
capital.
screwed. That's what he's trying to figure out.
I am trying to make sure that the district is properly compensated.
Thank you.
Okay, but I'll go back to, we just had that discussion, that at a conservative level, we'll use the worst-case scenario. You're talking $39,000 of expense, to Mr. Costick's point, that the heating and air conditioning would be there anyway, and stuff like that. So you're at 60,000, so you're covering your expense.
I'm not disagreeing with
This
that.
ends up being a benefit to the employees at no cost to the district.
I'm not disagreeing with that.
We
So
need
you have a number in
money,
mind that you
so
think
get
that
the
is the
most
right
you
number?
can. Duh.
I'm curious.
No, I mean, obviously, there's some probably discounting of, you know, the market rate versus what is being charged to the teachers, which is something that you can be fine with. But, I mean, I just think that this has to be negotiated.
Okay, so I just want to make sure I understand. So are you saying that you're in favor of providing the daycare service? You just want to leave open the amount that they'll pay?
Yes, I'm saying it should be a negotiated contract,
Okay,
is what I'm saying.
because I have some other items I'd like to add into that. But you're okay with providing daycare service, assuming it reaches the appropriate amount?
Yes.
Okay.
Any further discussion?
Yeah, more questions. Since we're
More discussion?
Sure.
This is, you know, as it sits, it's a $180,000 contract over a 3-year period with basically a local small business. Do we give any consideration to, and it's to the business, like some type of personal guarantee of the payments, or maybe a standing letter of credit, so that if for some reason, I know you put in the late fee, but if they just choose not to pay at all, to Chris's point,
And then in 90 days, they can.
we're paying money, right, we don't have it.
Yeah, so that's something we can.
If we're going to talk far, to that point,
Well,
I
we're
mean,
going to negotiate.
what,
Let's get it all out there, rather than go back and forth 3 times.
right, but is this what you put everything in negotiations out right now?
Well,
or do you have someone, superintendent, go back and negotiate these things? All I'm saying is, let's look at they have to pay the tax bill if something got, how are they gonna, how are you guaranteed to get paid on the tax bill?
That's kind of where we're going.
Right.
It's in the contract, so they would be obligated to.
Right.
And
So,
if they don't, they'd be in
If not,
default.
Legal
It'd be in
recourse
through the
default.
contract.
And then if for some reason the corporation didn't, then they'd have a personal guarantee for the remedies in the contract.
do we have that now?
No, that's what I just asked for.
No.
Another thing that I think we should put in here, Scott, just at the risk of going forward, is the idea that these employees are somehow identified when they're in the building. You've got adults interacting with high school students, and the authority level could be different, especially at those ends of the building. So that if somehow we say, I'll leave that to you to describe how that should be, that they're not getting direction from someone that isn't a district employee at that time.
Correct. And as usual, I know in years past, they've all gone through the same screening and background checks, et cetera.
They have to.
Are we able to get, without their permission, any DCF visits, audits, reports?
They're public,
It's
Okay.
public.
But and they're in a timely manner?
for the most part. And we've, since I've been doing this, we've had discussions post-visit as some of the items we help to correct. Like the mulch being a little low here at Central. We added some mulch, so. But that's something we certainly request, and they are posted on, is it Sunshine or?
Yes, it's Sunshine.
It's a
What
Sunshine.
do you mean, is it timely enough? I guess, I don't know, so I'll defer to whoever is doing that, but I just know through some of the other conversation that there were questions with maybe some potential issues with DCFS, and it seemed to be somewhat in arrears for when it was identified.
Yeah, their 2016 that I believe occurred in the fall is on the website for both Mary Sears and Nancy.
Would it be something at the risk of, it's more of a minor point than Chris's point, but to build in here that when, that we receive a copy as they receive a copy.
Share report.
So that we don't have to wait for government bureaucracy to post it on some type of website, just in case the issue is bigger than what it may appear to be. Because we heard the young lady come up tonight, talk about reputation, risk, branding. That's all we need is something to pop up. Talked about the late payment. Those were my primary.
If we are going to move forward, I would at least ask to amend the motion to ask that we enter into a contract to be negotiated. We at least need to, the teachers at least need to know that there'll be child care services next year. Because if we don't establish it, and if we don't, that's fine. But they need to know because they need to find their spots elsewhere.
So looking for a motion that would be
Well, I guess
to proceed with negotiation of a contract?
Proceed to a negotiation with Aunt Nancy's. If the board's in favor of that, I'll sit back down with them and we'll go from there.
Mr. Below, is your motion? Second.
That's something you would hammer on and get back to us in January, because
It has to be.
Yeah.
Yes.
So the motion is to proceed into negotiations with on-site childcare provider. May I have a motion, please? Mr. Lillo, you have that?
So moved.
Second.
Update on the finance, building and advisory. Oh, I'm sorry. Good grief.
Roll call.
Yes, please.
Mr. Lulo?
Aye.
Mr. Kosel?
Aye.
Mr. Kirking?
Aye.
Mr. Costick?
Aye.
Mr. Lucetti? Mrs. Molinari?
Aye. Update Finance Building Advisory Committee meeting schedule.
We've made some adjustments to the schedule and to allow for a little bit better financial reporting. We've bumped back the dates, January 17th, February 14th, March 14th, April 18th, May 16th, and June 13th. So I'd ask that you approve the amended Finance Building Advisory Committee meeting schedule as presented.
Motion to approve the schedule as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Approval of the District 210 Advisory Committee meeting schedule.
Real quick, Building and Finance Advisory Committee member or members. Number 9.
Oh, number 9. I'm sorry, I jumped ahead.
I would like to recommend the addition of Mr. Steve Whalert of New Lenox to the Finance and Building Advisory Committee.
Motion, please.
So moved. Second.
Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Now we can do the 210 advisory meeting schedule.
Meeting schedule, all of our meetings have been posted, they're online, need board approval. Our next meeting is January 9th, and February 13th, March 13th, April 10th, and May 8th. I'd ask that you approve these meeting dates as presented.
Motion, please.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Informational items. Lincoln Way Area Special Ed, 843. Mr. Mueller.
I attended that meeting. We still continue to look, as does the advisory board, of possibly eliminating that part of the equation. Basically, the governing board, very much like this board, is one representative from each of the districts that are represented there. And the advisory board, made up of the superintendents, also meet monthly, and they advise the director and give direction to the governing board to be approved. But there seems to be, kind of redundancy in it, and it's basically having the same meeting twice. So at this point, the boards, both the advisory and the governing, are looking at possibly eliminating the governing board or the advisory board and just having them as a still around monthly, but not as an official meeting, if you will. Does that sound?
Yes, we would continue to meet monthly, various superintendents, but it wouldn't be an official meeting as such.
So as that develops or as that comes forth in 2017, I'll keep you guys updated. Other than that, business as usual at 8:43. That concludes my report.
Thank you. FOIA requests.
For requests from October 12th to November 10th, we received 23 FOIAs. They were in your backup materials for your review.
Thank you. Enrollment update.
Dr. Murphy.
In your backup material, there's a document that starts to look at some enrollment of our students. Every year between October, 25 students. So if you look at the last 3 years, and you look at those the numbers that we uploaded as compared to the numbers of students that are actually enrolled, the average of those three is about 98% of the students that we upload actually continue on to attend one of the Lincoln Way schools. A lot of this is due to students that may have chosen to go to a different school, a private placement, or moved out of the district. So if we look at that, we compare that to the most recent set of numbers, the class of 2021 that we received from our feeder districts. The number that we uploaded was 1,684 students. If we apply that same average percentage, that would take us to about 1,651 students, a drop of 30 students from what they had anticipated from what we've uploaded to what we would guess to be next year. Chart 2 is the numbers that we've received from our feeder districts as of October 15, 2016. These numbers are broken down into the feeder districts and kind of organized them so that we could get an idea of the enrollments in each of the schools that we currently have, and also as we were to try and speculate going forward, you'd see those numbers kind of going around, going down from there. And again, these numbers are numbers that we received from our feeder districts based on the students that are sitting in seats as of October 15, 2016. these numbers do not include any out-of-district placements. So those would be students that we have placed that are our students, but yet attend like a Hopewell or a McKay Center or any of the other schools along those lines. So these are truly just bodies and seats. So you can see how we broke it up on the screen here, but these are just breaking it down a little bit further. One of the things to note on this chart here is the other feeder in each of the three schools. You notice that those numbers are kind of on the higher side. The reason for that is there's a lot of movement that occurs between our three buildings. So you'll see that the other feeder for Central will also include students from Summit Hill, from Manhattan, from Mokina's going here, but from Frankfurt and whatnot. So we know that there is movement amongst our three buildings from our feeder district. So that's why you see those numbers are higher from the 12th grade down to the 9th grade. And then from the 8th grade, the numbers I did not get from our feeder district, so I kind of just used that same number that we have for our current 8th grade from our private placements and used those throughout the remainder years as we kept on going down. Our third table takes a look at that same information. I just clumped it all together for us so that you can truly see the enrollments in each of our buildings based on the information that was provided to us from our feeder districts from October 15th. And you can see the enrollments at each of the three schools. And I threw it out there from this current year where we're at today, all the way down to 22, school year 22-23. And what you can see there is that there's a natural drop of students based on the enrollment that the numbers had provided for us. Again, I want to emphasize that these numbers, even the current numbers, don't represent any students that are placed out of district. So the out-of-placement students are not included in these numbers, which is why they may not match with what you see on the Illinois State Board of Education's website. So we have approximately 80 students that are placed at McKay or other schools throughout the district. So as you look at that, you can see as we go into next year, we could anticipate approximately an 80 student drop. Now, that is with the numbers being as they are, as they were presented. The fourth chart kind of takes into account the 98% of students coming into Lincoln from the previous enrollment. So if we go on our past history and assuming that 98% of the students that we get from our feeder districts attend one of our Lincoln Way schools, I apply that from the 8th grade class on down, these are the numbers that we can anticipate. And what you can gather from that is that we can anticipate going into next year anywhere from a drop enrollment from 80 to 115 students. And you can see how that projects out through 2022, 2023.
Any questions?
What's the capacity of each building?
We're at 3750 at Central and East, 2500 at West and North.
So no building is at risk of being at capacity in the near future.
Obviously, the decline here, but have we looked at year to year, if has this stabilized, like, for example, take Summit Hill, there are 4th through 8th graders. I mean, have you looked at that, what they were, the previous year, to see if there was any, small increase in the number of students, or if it's decreasing, looking at the same, grade levels?
Sure. So you're asking me to look at if I've looked at the growth in our feeder districts, and if they went from 4th grade to 5th grade, has that number increased at all?
Yeah.
From what I can tell is the numbers are pretty consistent from the 4th grade to the 5th grade. Of course, there is a little bit of growth, just as there's a little bit of growth when we go from our 9th grade to our 10th grade. To say that I've looked at each of our feeder school districts, I have not. But
we can build
I can
that.
definitely do some investigations there.
Yeah, we can build that.
Well, it's kind of to see how the trend is.
Trend goes.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we can
Class to
see.
class.
Yeah.
We can build that. Not necessarily. You'd be looking at it going across as they go up. So we've done that in the past. Yes.
And I think it's interesting if you look by the enrollment of the building, and I did some quick hand math here with Central's, between 16 and 23, according to this, is going to lose 323 students. East is going to lose 419, and West is going to lose 76.
please. Can't hear you.
Sorry about that. According to just looking at the enrollment by building, Central between the school year 2016-2017 and the school year 2022 and 2023 is going to lose, Central's going to lose 323 students in this projection. East would lose 419, and West would lose 76. And that's using the enrollment by building and just comparing the two numbers.
Without any growth.
Without any growth.
Does there come a point when you look at trying to balance the enrollment a little more?
That'll be a board discussion. Sir, I mean, it's something the board can discuss. Sir.
But I think even if you look at that on the back of the page underneath there, West becomes larger than East, then West becomes larger than Central
At some point.
in 19.
But even in 22, 23 is what you're talking about? You
Yeah.
still get over 40% of the students at East.
Yeah, East is still.
Because, it's just for the foreseeable future, this is 7 years out. It doesn't take into consideration new building or anything else that comes into play. East carries a preponderance of the population. The 40, 30, 30, you could move the 30 up or down a percent, just use big round numbers. And I think if an enrollment look at, it needs to be really like set out there so that people know that it's coming. It's not like okay, in 2018 we're going to shift this around.
But if you look at the proportion of East is actually losing students faster.
I don't disagree. It's just still out 7 years, they're carrying 40%. And they're losing them faster, but they start with a greater base. So as a percentage of loss, they're staying about the same.
Correct.
And so we've heard some discussion in some of the public comment about some of the administrative ratios to students and things like that. And this would indicate that that is probably going to stay in place for the foreseeable future based on what the feeder schools are telling.
Well, I think if you look at this, though, it doesn't. I think it says that they're starting. I'm not disagreeing that they're not.
They are disagreeing,
but the ratio, or that the schools are becoming closer in size as time goes on.
I'm talking about as a percentage of total population and then the administrative to student ratio. It doesn't get any better in the next 7 years trying to even that out. So that's all. At some point, to your point, you answered my question, I should just let it go, that the Board of Ed probably needs to take a look at this maybe later this year to say, if the building permits stay where they are and everything else, is this something to consider for a 2021 school year that we might move this boundary over to kind of create more parity amongst the populations of the school? That is the question.
Any questions on that?
Thank you, Dr. Murphy. Salary and benefit projections?
I'd like to refer everyone to the memo that I left at your place tonight entitled Payroll Projections. As we know, the district budgeted $51,556,972 for salaries for this fiscal year. As of the December 5th payroll, we are realizing a 2.6% reduction in payroll expenditures compared to the 2016 fiscal year. The trend we are seeing in payroll is that we're projecting that by the end of the year, it will be a 4.5% reduction by the end of this particular fiscal year, which would approximately be $2.6 million. We still have a long way to go. This includes 11 payrolls, but the way we're trending is in the right direction. Now, going forward, we made some assumptions just to keep the board knowledgeable in regards to where we're going in the future. So the projections we ran for administrators and supervisors For 2018, we've got 3 administrators that will be retiring that year. Currently, they're under contracts where they get 6% increases. So for next year, for that projection, we gave them a 6% increase. We do have administrators that are at a 3% increase, so we built that in. For all other administrators, supervisors, we used a 1% increase for FY 2018 and for FY 2019. For the FY 2019 projection, we replaced all those retiring administrators with salaries of what would be new administrators in those particular positions. Administration in our broken out accounts for roughly 7% of our payroll budget. As for the teachers, FY 2018 is the last year of their contract, so the contractual stepped increase is 2%. We also use that 2% just for prediction's sake for 19 as well, but that contract will expire in 2018. We have 17 teachers that are currently in the retirement pipeline receiving 6% raises, and 10 other teachers in the retirement pipeline receiving 3% raises. So those were all factored into these projections. There are 143 teachers that are eligible for lane changes. So what we did was did an analysis of lane changes that have been done throughout the years. We came up with a number of $118,000. It gives a proportionate amount of the various categories of the lane changes that we have in our contract. We have another 33 teachers that qualify for the longevity stipends. In the past, it was referred to the professional growth incentive. In the last contract extension, we moved into what we refer to as a longevity stipend. So for FY 2018, those 33 teachers equate to about $87,000 for longevity stipends. In 2019, there are 35 teachers at roughly $91,000. For 2018 and in 2019, of those teachers that will be retiring, we reduced one of those retired teachers from the projections. So we're basically, for each year, we took out just one body, we kept the staffing the same. As you just saw from Dr. Murphy, the enrollment will drive what we need staff-wise, but we don't know that until students start to register for classes. So really, when we get back from break, we'll start to get a better idea, looking at 2018, what our staffing needs are. But right now, for the projection, all we did for 18 was remove one teacher for 18 and one again for 19. As for unionized support staff, as the board knows, we are still in negotiations with those folks, with the LWHS ESP. We will continue that bargaining process, but for the sake of this projection, for this year, which we are still not under contract, we use a 1.5% increase because that's what the rest of our support staff receive. 2% increase because that's what our teachers will receive in FY18. Then once again, to kind of mask that 2% idea, we use that again for 2019. There are only 4 members currently in the unionized support staff that are in the retirement pipeline. By the time we have the turnover and attrition, it really kind of wipes out any impact that those retirement incentives would have. As for non-unionized support staff, what we used for 2018 and 19 was that 2% raise again. There's only 5 members that will be in the 2018-19 payrolls that would be receiving any kind of incentive. Really, 2017, the inclusion of this year, we will see 10 of those support staff members retire. So what we did was replace their salaries with other salaries at a lower rate. So going forward, looking at 2018 for that projection, we came up with a number of 52, just projecting, $52,400,000. It's roughly a 2% increase above this year, to FY 2017. Looking at 19, when we rolled that out, we came up with a projection of $53,063,269.70, or roughly 1.2% higher. A lot of where that comes in, where you saw the different groups, for example, with teachers with the lane changes and longevity stipends with a 2% raise does increase that, as we learned, we've talked about here in board meetings before. So with all the retirements coming out, that's where we end up with those particular numbers. The chart gives you a kind of a breakdown by job category of what each job category we spend in payroll. Like I said, these are all approximates, projections. But when we go down to the bottom of the memo, we see where benefits get involved in this. So this year, for benefits, the district will spend roughly $7,500,000 on benefits for staff members. Due to some of the changes that we've been able to make with our health insurance carrier in particular, we feel very confident that we can keep that number flat rolling into 2019. So for the sake of this projection, those benefit numbers were kept flat for 18 and 19, or for 18.
Yeah.
For 18. For 19, we used a 1% increase. We've been pretty lucky with, with some of the different things that we've done with health insurance. So when you look at the total package, for this year, for salary and benefits, we will spend roughly $59,086,079 on salary and benefits for staff. Looking at FY 2018, we're looking at something of $59,930,084, which would be roughly a 1.4% increase. The benefit savings there really kind of draws back that 2% just for looking at salary. Now, if you look at FY 2019, the salary and benefits goes to $60,667,667.83, tongue twister, which is roughly a 1.2% increase. Now, these are projections. There's a lot of things that can play into this. For example, Dr. Murdy with the enrollment projections will definitely drive everything in here. As we know, this is a substantial portion of the district's budget is tied up in the personnel. We're going to go into bargaining we're still in bargaining with one union, we'll have bargaining with another coming up. So those could all have impacts on this. Just wanted to give the board a general idea of kind of where we stand and where we could kind of are going in the general landscape of things.
And this is something we will update at the end of the third quarter here as we, February, March, we'll have a pretty good idea of sections and know where we're going and come back with an updated version as we begin to build the budget for next fiscal year. Kelly and Steve will close December 31st and do more of a detailed budget to actual and begin to build that process then for those first 6 months of the next fiscal year.
Thank you. 26, I'm sorry.
So there's 17 teachers that are receiving the 6% raises. Of those 17, when are they retiring?
8 of them will retire at the conclusion of 2018-19, or 18 school year, 17-18 school year. Then the next 9 will retire after the conclusion of the 2018-2019. The 3 administrators will retire, I think I said this, but at 2018 school year.
So 20, the number's about 20 for administrators and teachers over the next 3 years that are going to be retiring.
Anything else?
Just, Scott, you mentioned that they will be working on the B-word budget.
Yep, budget.
When will we see a draft
Of an entire budget?
or even a 6-month budget?
Kelly's looking.
I mean, it's a draft.
Yeah, it's a draft,
Forecast, the
and that's
proposal.
where we're working towards here with Press Joe, because obviously this is going to be well over 70%.
Great work.
So, yeah, let us get a good look at December, and I think that's something certainly we want by the end of the third quarter to be able to start to look at. Okay, here's our first half is done and gone. Here's where we spend it. Here's where we think we're going to need to spend it next year.
Right.
And we're already developing that now in Rich Wilkie's world, because really, once we have this in place, the rest of it, we look at two prior years' expenditures and start to break it down. So I think, give us January, February, we're going to keep bringing stuff back to
So
you.
sometime during the first quarter of 2017, we would see a draft budget for the 17.
Certainly that's the goal, Joe.
Okay.
No, that's, I mean, as we're in a much better place now than we've been in past budgets in terms of monitoring and getting everything into the proper
I agree.
places. And so as we close out the first half and we make our adjustments, we'll do so at the end again of the third quarter, and we're going to have a pretty good idea of where we need to go. Yeah.
So that's fair.
Yep, something that we'll keep on bringing back to you.
Yeah, I mean, I think this has to be hopefully incorporated into a 5-year, 3-year, and a 5-year projection, so that when we are going through the budget, we can kind of, you know, set the course, because, I mean, we have to build up our cash reserves, so I think we have to start, you know, this is good information, the information here on, you know, the students, these two things start to go into your 5-year projections, and I think we have to kind of see, you know, a bigger picture than just that budget going forward.
Thank you. 2016 audit findings review.
Kelly, we're meeting currently with, well, monthly, two of our board members. We report back to the finance and building, report back to the board as well. This is going to be a standing agenda item as we work our way through the audit findings. Kelly, if you want to give a brief overview, and then we can answer any questions that the board may have. And Mr. Ricchetti, also feel free to discuss this as well.
Sure. Included in your board packet was essentially a matrix of all of the audit findings that were identified during our fiscal year 2016 audit. We put both the finding, the auditor's recommendation, and then our response. And we also have columns that are included for when we are proposing that we will have these resolved, and then a column for status. Several of the things I already consider to be resolved just since the start of the school year, or start of the fiscal year, sorry. I don't know if you want me to walk through all of those, but mainly I think some of our findings were a direct result of our software system being a main one, and the fact that we have converted now to Skyward is going to be huge as far as being able to provide better reporting, a better overall look at budget to actual, and things like that. That was a lot of what the auditors had talked about. Sorry, I'm trying to. My report is stapled backwards. Reviewing the general ledger, I think that's obviously something that is ongoing right now. It's happening. I think it was happening before, but our previous software just really handcuffed our ability to be able to look at the big picture of everything. The budget recorded in the accounting software, that's already been resolved. Skyward has a really nice budgeting feature where you can do the budget. It's not the way that it was done this year, but you can do the budget right in Skyward, and it interfaces directly with the state budgeting form. So there would never be any instances where your budget and your software wouldn't match the state budgeting form. What we did this year was that Mr. Langer did the budget outside of Skyward, but they also has a really good import feature. So it just imported in Skyward, and we're already set with that. Capital outlay was something that I identified, pretty early on in, after I started here, that we weren't charging, we weren't using the IPAM 5400 object code correctly for capital outlay. So that's something that we're working to correct. We're correcting going forward. There are some things in the beginning of the year that are going to have to be reclassed via journal entry to the correct either supplies or purchase services account. So those are some of the things that I consider complete. Most of the things on here are things that I think that we'll be able to get done by the end of the year. They're not just kind of one and done type things. They're going to be things that are ongoing. Internal controls are going to be put in place that are constantly have to be monitored. So, but we're taking some really good steps in the right direction.
Yeah, as I look at this, it's 16 items, and the majority of them will be addressed and completed by the end of the year, fiscal year, June 2017. So that's good news for the district with
Couple
those findings.
quick questions, just Kelly or Scott or Chris. Are there any anticipated costs or expenses associated with completing any of these audit items?
So the only one that I think is probably the valuation that we would have to go through to get our capital asset inventory in line. I think our previous auditors kind of managed that for us. We're going to bring it back in-house how it should be, but we need to have a good starting point for that. And a good way to do that is to get an appraisal done by a third party.
Any idea, is that a major cost?
I don't know. Kelly, do you have
In my
experience?
previous district, we outsourced fixed asset accounting, which we're not planning on doing here. But I think, they only charge us, I think it was between $1,000 and $2,000 a year to actually do that. But the initial valuation part, the appraisal part, will be a little bit more. I think we got a quote on that in my previous district. I want to say it was around the $12,000 mark. Because it requires an on-site physical inventory. But I think it'd be a good exercise and money well spent to do that, to just get a good starting point. That's I think one of the only ones where I said, I don't know if we're going to get there this year with getting all of that done. So that could be decided maybe in the spring if we start that process.
Budgeted for probably the next year. Another one, a lot of these are management response. I don't know if you had a discussion in your committee or not, but could we put a person that's responsible, or maybe persons, so that there's some accountability as to Dee's point. A lot of these are going to get taken care of, but if for some reason one falls behind, or God forbid, there's a follow-up audit and it doesn't meet that criteria, I think it enhances the accountability of the item, especially considering the environment we came out of.
Sure.
And then, who determines when it's completed?
It's something we discussed, Chris.
Yeah, we talked about that at length.
Yeah, I mean, I think we have to kind of monitor these things. I think even if you say some things are going to be, I think like number one on here, where we're going to say, it's done, but it's an ongoing thing that has to be monitored. Because, I mean, you don't really know, I guess, until the auditor comes back.
Yeah, we also talked about, like, with the status, where if it's ongoing and 98% of the work's done, we're waiting for just to monitor it till the end of the year, and then we can close it back out, marking it as a percentage.
That's great. I just want to make sure I understand. So you go to the Board of Ed Audit Committee meeting, you're sitting there with administration, and you're vetting whether this is completed or not. So when this is completed in here, the committee members are getting much more detail. That's why we have a committee. And you're acknowledging that this is completed.
Yes.
Okay. That's good.
So the only one I would maybe put something in the status update, and we talked about this at our building and finance meeting, is in number 5, the comprehensive policies and procedures manual. And we have a June 2017 date in there. We talked about these will really be, the process narratives will be in place by the end of the year, not a comprehensive policies and procedures manual. So I would note that. That's kind of the goal, not.
Yeah, define the scope.
Yes,
a little clearer.
right. I just want to set the expectations properly.
Right.
That's the only thing I had to add.
And that's something that we talked about in the trade meeting, the building trades meeting, too, is to document a lot of these processes and things as they go along by attrition.
Thank you.
Thank you. Building and grounds report. Mr. Wilkie.
Good evening. Good evening. Hopefully you all received a copy of the building or the operations and maintenance report via email this week. First of all, I'd like to apologize. The memo itself is dated incorrectly. Obviously, I did not report out on November 15th. I'll get you an updated copy of that. Looking for the report, the report is basically compares expenditures from this fiscal year to previous fiscal year. in utilities, custodial service, lawn care supplies, food services. If you look at the operations and maintenance report or the spreadsheet, you'll notice some numbers that are in red. Those are estimates. We feel that they're reliable. 3 months of electric bills at Central seems excessive. You have to estimate. The reason that their estimates is how I'd switch to a smart meter in this school building, which obviously isn't very smart because they're not getting their data. So, but we do have reliable usage data from Enernac, which is another company that we did a retro commissioning with several years ago, so we feel the estimates are reliable. Basically, electricity continues to be the greatest area of savings, approximately $214,500. Most of that at North at $141,855. Central, East, and West reduced by $31,585, $32,227, and $9,059. Natural gas costs are up this year. We attribute that to the fact that we're running the cogen plants. Water and sewer services are up at Central, East, and West. Again, we attribute that to the fact that there's increased enrollment in those facilities. Waste removal costs continue to be down as a result of the bidding process. Cleaning service costs are higher at Central, East, and West due to the fact that we moved some staff from North to those buildings, and some of the overhead and profit would be moved to those locations as there's no expenditures in that area being assigned to Lincoln North. Although overall in that area, expenditures are down $89,848 from the closing of North. Lawn care costs are up year to date, but remember, we won't have billing in December, January, February, and March, so we expect that that line would be a savings by the end of the fiscal year. Supplies and services, again, are contingent somewhat upon timing and mechanical issues like in the school buildings. So we'll just continue to monitor those and report any anomalies as they occur. I think that's all I have for this portion of the report. If the board would like to, or allow me to, I would like to talk a little bit about the boiler incident at Central. Okay. On November 28th, at approximately 10:45, we had a report of a loud noise near the science wing. So the building supervisor, Mr. Hofstadler, and myself went to investigate and went down to the boiler room and found that there had been an ignition of natural gas in the stack, causing damage to the stack. We shut down the equipment electrically and isolated the gas valves. At that time, we called for service from the factory rep. The factory rep came out to look at the equipment to try and ascertain what had happened and possibly put it back into service. They could not pinpoint the cause of the incident, so we called the fire marshal to report the incident and ask for an inspection. Factory rep and the fire marshal took the equipment out of service. They didn't feel it was safe to restart it without knowing exactly what had caused the natural gas to accumulate in the stack. At this time, we decided that with our heating boilers for that section of the building locked out, that we had an emergency. We went ahead and ordered temporary heat for the building to protect the building and to preserve the operation. We reported the incident to our insurance company. The insurance company agreed with us that since a sudden, unexpected incident took our heating out of service, it was our duty to protect the building, preserve the operation, and that they would cover the cost of the temporary heating. Right now, we're looking at several different options. Moving forward, I don't have numbers for you today. I want to make sure that we do our homework and we can answer as many questions as we can. First option would be the cheapest, probably, to repair the equipment with updated burners and controls with the existing boiler shells. Second option would be to put new boilers in that boiler room. The third option would be to expand the main central heating plant, which in 2000 was designed to be expanded to take that portion of the building at the end of life for that equipment. So we'll look at all those options, get some pricing estimates together, and bring that back to the board possibly in January. That's all I have.
Questions for
How
me?
long does the insurance keep paying?
I'm sorry?
Is that money just the one-time pay, or is that, how does?
We're working through that right now. The insurance is going to pay for the initial installation of the temporary heat, and they're going to pay for the monthly rental fee of the temporary heat until we decide a direction and they decide how much they're responsible for. So the majority of the cost was the installation of that unit.
I'm sorry, could you elaborate a little more? You said the heating system that was put in 2000 was designed to be expanded to eventually...
Yeah, Central has 3 boiler rooms.
Okay,
The one that we're having issues with now was installed in 1969.
okay.
The one in the field house was installed in 1994. And then in 2000, the main plant was installed here to replace some steam boilers that were in place. When they put the main heating plant in, they designed the piping and the size of the room to accommodate a 3rd boiler. There's 2 in there. Accommodate a 3rd that would eliminate the North Wing heating plant, and eventually, at end of life, the field house heating plant, to consolidate the operation into a centralized heating plant for efficiency and ease of maintenance, streamline the operation.
Anything further? Thank you, Mr. Wilkie. Community Relations Report. Is that well?
As you all know, strategic planning took place at the start of December. Dr. Madonia emailed us some results of the evaluation that we sent out. There were about 45 evaluations from participants who participated in the planning session. 100% of them felt the 2 days were beneficial. 99.5% felt that their voice was heard, and 0.5% were undecided. 50% felt that the days met their expectations, and 50% felt that the days exceeded their expectation. So it was a great thing to do, so I appreciate that from all of you. The Lincoln Way Transition Program Holiday Sale was a huge success. We do not have any more poinsettias, so that's great for them. Girls swimming wrapped up for the season, and for the first time in Central's history, they are the varsity conference champions. And then cheerleading football teams here at Central have joined forces to collect toy donations for patients at Silver Cross, and anybody who's interested can drop off new unwrapped toys tomorrow, until tomorrow in the athletic office. At the start of December, a local business called Cupcake Crazy came to teach Lincoln Way East life skills students how to decorate cupcakes using icing bags. They made treats and then brought them to their dance 2 days later. And then, as Mr. Patel said, they participated in that Silver Turkey food drive and raised almost 5,000 items to donate to the Frankfort Township Food Pantry. Then on Monday, Lincoln Way West Orchestra had a packed day. Their choir performed live on WCIU, and the Warrior Madrigals performed live on WGN. Both of those are linked from our Facebook page. And then last Saturday, West also hosted a district-wide chess tournament to help prepare students for the February IHSA state chess competition, and over 100 students attended. And then students and staff are just busy preparing for finals right now and are looking forward to the break. So it was a great first semester. Thank you.
Thank you. Lots of great happenings. Legislative report.
Nothing significant to report. We continue to monitor at the federal level the change of the ESSA.
Thank you. Asset of the month.
Asset of the month. Planning ahead, young person plans and uses personal time effectively at home. Show your support by attending your children's performances at school. Keep music and arts in the school and in the community. Use local talent at community functions.
Thank you. Superintendent's district report.
We already discussed the TAWs. We will bring forward several policies for our first reading in January. One of those will be a beefing up of a whistleblower inspector general policy. We do have a draft right now. It is with Mr. Izzo and his firm, and when I'll certainly have that back ready for a first reading in January. In terms of the strategic plan, I once again want to thank everyone who participated. We had a meeting, an administrative meeting. Following that meeting, lasted nearly 2 hours, where everybody discussed exactly what their group meant in terms of those goals. So I agree with Sam. We need to hear the perspective of each group as we work through the action plans. The planning is going well. We have another meeting tomorrow morning where we'll continue to develop those action plans. The goal is to have those to Dr. Madonia by the end of next week and bring back to the board in January for discussion and then approval of those action plans based upon the results from the 2 days of work. So we're making solid progress. We'll have those back to you in January.
Good, good. I'd like to recommend that for those participants during strategic planning, there could be some sort of certificate sent to them.
They're in the mail.
They are already, okay,
Okay,
great.
we're going.
I had requested, but it's already been done. Thank you very much, Taryn. She's 2 steps ahead of me. That certificates of appreciation be sent out to those participants for strategic planning who gave of themselves for a Friday evening and a Saturday morning. We're very worthwhile.
It's very appreciated.
Dynamic group of individuals. So it's greatly appreciated. Anything else, Mr. Coons?
Oh, can I make a recommendation?
Yes.
On the policies and procedures, could we bring back 4.20, which is under operational services, it's fund balances?
Yes.
And
Clarification real quick, if I could. In terms of limits, balances. Yes. Okay. Oh.
general board comments. Anything for the good of Lincoln Way? Any general correspondence? I would urge you all, we have these in our board packets on a monthly basis. Please take time to read over that. I know we have a lot of digesting of material, but they're very worthwhile and interesting information in there. We have no closed session items. Wish you all a terrific holiday season. We extend that also to everyone. Thank you for coming out in the frigid cold. Motion to adjourn the meeting, please.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.